Hello again, and as always, thank you for taking the time to join us. Today, I'd like to briefly touch base on DPF systems and regens, as well as a way for you to perform a post-trip check on the Volvo DPF system. It's cold. And with the cold, we start to see longer idle times, lower truck operational temperatures, and lower exhaust temperatures. And with this combination, we also start to see a faster buildup of soot and particulate matter in the after treatment system. When we talk about emissions, I want to focus specifically on the DPF, or diesel particulate filter. And what this is part of the exhaust system that is designed to collect any remaining particles, pollutants, or soot that are left over from the diesel engine combustion cycle. In theory, it's designed to help reduce emissions. The short answer is it's a filter inside the exhaust system. The trouble we have with this type of system is that it is in a constant state of being clogged by the combustion process. The inside of the DPF is shaped like a tight-knit group of honeycombs, and there's a lot of different factors as to why and how fast this can become plugged. The bright side of this system is it's designed to self-clean through a regen process. In time, the DPF will need to be replaced, but we can help extend its life through the regen process. As soot or other particles build up inside the DPF, there are sensors that monitor the input and output levels of the exhaust and will tell the computer that it's time to perform a regen. This process is done by burning off all these accumulated particles with high heat, which then creates ash, which is then expelled out of the exhaust system with all the remaining gases. Essentially, what we're doing is baking the DPF in temperatures of excess of 1,000 degrees. There are multiple types of regens that can be performed on these trucks. There is a passive regen, which occurs as you're driving down the road. There's no operator interference needed. This happens automatically. The problem with this type of regen is that it may not be performed in its entirety, and we may have leftover particles and soot in the system, which in turn leads to a gradual buildup. The parked regen is a regen that is done through driver interface with the controls inside the truck. The downside of this type of regen is it requires you to stop the truck, perform the regen, and essentially stay parked until it's complete. And lastly, there's a forced regen, which we can do in the shop with diagnostic software. The downside of this type of regen is that it requires the truck to be put out of service, and if we get to the point where the system is calling for a forced regen, we may be at a point where the DPF needs to be replaced. So what can we do to reduce the amount of buildup in the DPF system and reduce the amount of lost time due to parked regens and out of service conditions in regards to the after treatment system? As a company, we have changed the type of fuel we have historically used, and we've also looked into different alternatives for engine oil to help reduce buildup in the system. As a driver, you can be conscious of your idle times. As part of our post trip on the Volvo tractors and Volvo dump trucks, we can actually check the status of the soot level in the DPF system. If you enter the menu screen using the buttons on the windshield washer stalk, enter the first menu that starts with gauges at the top and scroll down to after treatment. Once you enter that screen, scroll down to ATS status and then scroll all the way down to page 6 and you'll see soot level gauge. If the black bar inside that gauge is at or exceeding the arrow pointing downwards, you can then back out of the system and move to the request parked regen gauge. Ensure the truck is in neutral with the parking brake set and running at idle, and click enter on the request parked regen. You'll then see a screen that says data transfer in progress, and if all conditions are right, the truck will then enter a parked regen. If the truck doesn't enter a parked regen and your soot level's high, I would recommend you riding the truck up in the shop, high soot levels, and we can plug into the system and see if we can do a forced regen. If the truck does start to regen, go ahead and ride it up in the shop and let somebody know that the truck is outside performing a regen, and we'll shut it down at the end of the night. I hope that you found this video informative, and I definitely hope it helps reduce the amount of unscheduled regens within the fleet. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the shop at your local terminal, and thank you for everything you do.